Throughout the 1960s and the 70s, one team has dominated Formula One, a team that took many drivers to championships and overall success in the motorsport. A team that built cars that would change Formula One and car racing in general. A manufacturer called Team Lotus. In this video, we will talk about the history of Lotus in Formula One. To do this, we have to look at Lotus's foundation, where it all began for this historical team. Lotus was founded in 1948, 73 years ago, by Colin Chapman. Their first base, believe it or not, was in some old stables behind a railway hotel in North London. In 1954, Team Lotus split off from Lotus Engineering and had sights on racing, particularly Formula One. Chapman and Lotus wanted to enter Grand Prix racing, and in 1958 they entered the Monaco Grand Prix with two Lotus 12s. I want to move on to the most dominant and successful time in Lotus's Formula One career, the 1960s through the 1970s. Team Lotus was on fire in the 1960s and 70s. At the 1961 USA Grand Prix, Team Lotus took their first ever victory in Formula One. That's just 4 years after their debut in 1958. Not many F1 teams can say they took their first ever victory that soon. Jim Clark entered the team at the 1960 Dutch Grand Prix. That's halfway through the season in 1960. And of course, later on, Lotus developed this car, the Lotus 25. Now, this car was very famous due to a lot of reasons. Of course, Jim Clark driving that car, and it was the first ever car to have a monocoque chassis that was used in Formula One. This was the start of the dominance for Lotus. In the 1963 season, Jim Clark took 7 victories for the Lotus team and eventually took home the championship. 64 he did not win, but he came back a year later to win the championship in 65, this time only with 6 wins though. In 1966, when regulations came in that the engine size would be increased, Lotus switched to the BRM engines. Unfortunately, it did not really play out for the team. The Lotus 43, which was introduced that year, only scored 1 win. The following year, Lotus left the BRM engines behind and switched to Ford Cosworth, which would immediately bring victories to Lotus. In 1967, Lotus introduced the Type 49, which had a significant effect on Formula One because it was the first ever F1 car to use an engine as a structural part of the chassis. The 49 also had another innovative fact. In 1968, Lotus was the first works team to paint their cars in a livery of their sponsors. So this car had a lot of innovations to its name, but was it actually successful? Yes, it was. It took many wins, podiums, pole positions, and even fastest laps as well, and it had many drivers like Jim Clark, Graham Hill, and Jochen Rindt take victory. Next up was the Lotus 72, which was introduced in 1970, and this car was an absolutely amazing car. This changed Lotus and Formula One forever. It had advanced aerodynamic technology, larger front and rear wings, torsion bar suspension, the list just goes on and on. This car truly was ahead of its game. It also was very successful, giving Emerson Fittipaldi and Jochen Rindt their respective championships. The Type 72 was also the first Lotus to use the traditional black and gold livery that we all know and love. Let's move on to Lotus's next invention, the Type 77. The 77 had improved aerodynamics and a better cooling system than the 72. It also had a lighter monocoque design. At the end of the 70s, Lotus would take home their final Constructors' Championship in 1978. Before we continue on with this video though, I want to remind you guys, if you have not already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. I have a lot of new motorsport content that's coming out very soon. I make weekly videos, as you all know, so just make sure to hit that red subscribe button if you have not already. Okay, now let's come back to the video. We're starting to get into the 1980s now, and unfortunately, this is the decline of Lotus in Formula One. For the 1981 championship, Lotus built the Lotus 88. In an effort to maximize downforce, the 88 was fitted with a twin chassis technology, which the FIA did not agree to, and so the car was banned from Formula One. In 1984, Lotus switched to Goodyear tires and finished 3rd in the championship. Unfortunately though, Nigel Mansell would depart from the team, so Lotus had to start looking for a star driver. Lotus signed Ayrton Senna to the team, and this was a very good move because Senna immediately impressed, scoring 2 wins and 8 pole positions in 1986 with the 98T. The incredible looking 98T would be Lotus's last ever black and gold livery as an official Works Lotus team. The successor to the 98T, the 99T, would have an entirely new livery with the sponsoring of camel, which looks incredible as well, but it's not the traditional black and gold, it's an entirely new yellow. The 99T also took Lotus to their last ever win in Formula 1, with Ayrton Senna winning the 1987 Detroit Grand Prix. In the 1990s, it was just more decline for Lotus. They would be supplied by V12 Lamborghini engines before switching to Ford. In 1994, an administrative order was placed on Lotus. And so, Lotus at the end of the 1994 season at the Australian Grand Prix would pull out of Formula 1. Pacific would buy the team, but then they would pull out in 1995. And with that, Lotus was no more. So you're probably thinking, there's not much more to say. Lotus is gone. They're not returning to F1. Well, yes and no. Let me explain. To explain this, we have to talk about another team for just a minute. On September 28, 2008, on the 14th lap of the Singapore Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed into the wall at turn 17. The safety car was called out, allowing teammate Fernando Alonso to win from 15th on the grid. Question marks were high, and later on we found out that the driver in question was told to deliberately crash out so his teammate could win the race. After an investigation, it was announced that Renault had been handed a disqualification from Formula 1 in 2011 after Renault officially backed out as a fully fledged constructor. The team became known as Lotus Renault GP. Around this time, there was also a privately owned team under the name of Lotus. Group Lotus did terminate the deal they had with that privately owned team, and that private team became known as Caterham F1. So in 2012, that cleared the way for Lotus Renault GP to be changed to Lotus F1. The team brought back Kimi Räikkönen from Rally to join back in F1, and they brought in Romain Grosjean, a great talented lineup right there. And with that talented lineup, the team flourished, with 4th in the Constructors' Championship that season and a race victory at the 2012 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. In 2013, things went well again, Kimi Räikkönen taking his second to last victory to date at the Australian 2013 Grand Prix. Räikkönen would leave the team at the end of the season to go to Ferrari. Unfortunately, that was kind of the end of the Lotus F1 team. In 2014, they would not do very well, and in 2015, picking up their last podium with Romain Grosjean at the 2015 Belgian Grand Prix. On December 18th, 2015, the team was sold back to Renault, and the Lotus name was officially gone from F1. So that's the story of Lotus. What an incredible team we have just talked about here today. As it stands in 2021, Lotus is the 5th most successful team in Formula 1 with 6 titles to their name. To conclude this video, I just want to say one more thing about this team. If I were to summarize this team's career into one word, I'd say that word would be determination. Lotus persevered to have the max in each car to be able to win victories, and they did. And their innovative technology that they brought to their cars changed Formula 1 forever. To conclude, if Lotus never made it to F1, this sport would be a completely different racing. Thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this video about Lotus's history in Formula 1? And what was your favorite time period in Lotus's career? Comment below what you think, and also, if you have any ideas of another team we could talk about in this channel, please let me know down there as well. But that's it from me, everyone. I'll see you in the next one, so peace out, viewers.